Okay. Well, I show it's 6 o'clock this Wednesday, August 7th, 2013. Okay, we're about ready to get going. And it's time for a regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council to come to order. And in fact, what I would entertain is if somebody wishes to make a motion to excuse Councilmember Heisen because she is absent.
So moved.
Well, we got
Second.
a motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Heisen from tonight's meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, those opposed? Okay, she is excused. We start off this meeting with an invocation and followed by a pledge of allegiance. And so to give us the invocation this evening is Pastor Stoneham, pastor with the Word of Everlasting Life and Faith Church. So please join us in the invocation followed by the pledge of allegiance. Pastor Stoneham.
Thank you, sir. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you right now in the mighty name of Jesus, thanking you for this opportunity to be here in this place. First and foremost, Lord, for waking us up today and allowing us to live and see another day. For this is a day that you truly have made, and we are glad and we rejoice in it. Right now, Heavenly Father, as we come into this place, we ask you first and foremost to forgive us all for all of our sins and continue, Lord, your cleansing, your healing, and your wonderful working ways in us. Add a blessing to this proceeding tonight. Bless Mayor Dudley and this city council. Bless their families and all those families who are here tonight. We thank you, Father, for the job and the task that you have bestowed upon them. For your word clearly says, Lord, that promotion does not come from the east or the west or from the south, but you, God, are the judge. You putteth down one and setteth up another, and we thank you for setting up this council. Let them, Lord, trust in you with all their hearts and lean not to their own understanding, but in all their ways, let them acknowledge you so that you can direct their paths. We pray for a blessing tonight in this proceeding and that the needs of the people of this fair city will be met. Give them the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that they need to carry out the duties which you've given to them. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Stoneham. In this time, let's go ahead and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we sit down, if I could, I want to call upon Councilmember Bob Severance because he has some information, I think, in reference to former Councilmember Mike Malott.
For those that haven't heard, Mike Malott, former multi-term council member and mayor pro tem, had surgery just a little over a week ago, bypass that I failed, but he's having a real rough time. He's in Bellingham. Last we heard, he was having problems swallowing. There are no guests, but the family's getting to be able to spend some time with him. But he's hopefully you'll keep him in your hearts and minds. And Mayor, you talked about a moment of silence.
Exactly.
Okay.
If we can, a moment of silence for Mr. Mike Malott. Please join me in that. Thank you. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Mike Malott's family. First up, we have a proclamation for Korean War Veterans Remembrance Day, and we have Mr. Cecil Pierce here to accept it. We're going to turn to our Councilmember Joel Servadius to read that proclamation for us. Councilmember Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. Proclamation in recognition of Korean War Veterans Remembrance Day, July 27, 2013. Whereas 63 years ago, the communist invasion of the Republic of Korea summoned a generation of Americans to serve. From the landings at Incheon to the Pusan perimeter, from Heartbreak Ridge to Chosun Reservoir, our forces fought with immeasurable courage in one of the most defining moments of the Cold War. And whereas July 27, 2013 marks the 60th anniversary of the military armistice agreement signed at Panmunjom And whereas we honor all who served in the Korean War and pay lasting tribute and honor to the brave men and women who gave their lives for our nation and the forces of freedom when, during 3 years of combat, American service members and Allied forces overcame some of the most unforgiving conditions in modern warfare. And whereas, shortly after the military armistice agreement was signed, President Dwight D. Eisenhower noted that with special feelings of sorrow and of solemn gratitude, we think of those who were called upon to lay down their lives in that far-off land to prove once again that only courage and sacrifice can keep freedom alive and upon the earth. And whereas 60 years later, we renew that call to honor, keeping faith with our Korean War veterans by upholding the ideals they fought to protect and by supporting them with the care and respect they so deeply deserve. Now, therefore, we, Scott Dudley, Mayor, and the council members of the City of Oak Harbor, do hereby proclaim July 27th, 2013, as Korean War Veterans Remembrance Day, and encourage all Americans to recognize the valor and sacrifice of our veterans through appropriate public ceremonies and private prayers. Signed this 23rd day of July, 2013, Scott Dudley, Mayor. We know it's passed, but...
Thank you very much.
Mr. Cecil Pierce.
Council member, Mayor, first of all, thanks very much for doing this. Even though this here was the official date was 1.5 weeks ago, we still need to remember our Korean War vets, as all of our veterans. Veterans have done a lot for this country, and let's always keep them in our prayers and think about them. And again, I want to thank y'all for recognizing our Korean War veterans. If there's names of Korean War veterans that you know, drop it off at the VFW, put my name on it, Cecil Pierce, Post Commander, and I will ensure that they get it. Leave me a contact point, and like I said, I will make sure that they get it. I have several names already that I will be getting with and passing these out. And again, thanks very much.
And thank you, Mr. Pierce. This time we'll turn to our police chief, Ed Green, for some well-deserved recognition of some officers. Chief Green.
Mayor, councilors, thank you. As you can see, I've got quite a following coming in tonight. Normally, Law Enforcement Memorial Week is the third week of May. I think we made it the first week of August here. I've got 5 people I need to recognize this evening, so I've asked that they not only all join me, but invite their family and friends, so that's what you're seeing coming in here. So to start off with, we're going to start with a couple of life-saving awards. I've got 3 specifically. I'm going to start with Officer John Valenzuela. Purposely, as you can see, most of the officers here are dressed in uniforms, but where are you at, John? There you are. Officer Valenzuela is dressed in casual attire, I guess you could say. When you hired me, one of the things you asked is that we talk about community-oriented policing and some of the things I had planned and what I planned on doing. And Officer Valenzuela is the epitome of that. And when I asked him to be here this evening, he had to shuffle a schedule and do quite a few things. And he's actually put an entire football team, young kids, on hold so he could be here. He is the coach of one of our local football teams. So I robbed him away from them real quick to get him here so we can do this. So if you can be patient with him. What I'm going to do is recite to you exactly what happened on the event and what led to us giving these officers their life-saving awards. These awards are not just given in jest, they're not just handed out because we think they've done something. Generally what's happened is the officers have done something and they have saved a life, and that's been affirmed by either a doctor, medical personnel, EMT, fire department, something along those lines. So this isn't something I just gratuitously give out. You got to go through a whole check and balance system. On June 22nd of 2013, Officer Valenzuela responded to a call of a possible suicide where neighbors had heard a gunshot fired from the residence where a suicidal subject resided. The subject had previously made threats to law enforcement. Officer Valenzuela, along with deputies from the Allen County Sheriff's Office, volunteered to enter the residence, facing a possible risk to themselves from the suicidal subject, while the other responding officers maintained the perimeter around the residence. The entering officers located the subject hanging with the noose tightly around his neck. Officer Valenzuela quickly moved to the location, cut the rope, releasing the subject from the noose. The subject was transported to the hospital, survived the incident. Officer Valenzuela showed dedication, professionalism, and providing the highest level of service in the citizens of Oak Harbor. He is to be commended on this day for his life-saving efforts in this instance and is awarded the Oak Harbor Life-Saving Award and Medal as a result. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have two? You have two. I need one back.
That's right. That's right.
Clements. So I have another award here. And thank you, John, for taking time out of your day to come in. So I have another award here, and I'd like to ask that Chief Ray Merrill join me on this one. This particular award comes in for Officers Mike Clements and Officer Mel Loma. They were actually nominated for this award from the fire department and from Fire Chief Ray Merrill. So I don't know if you want to say
I
anything.
do. I'm right now. Stand back here in the back row. I'm a little nervous. I want to read just one letter that I got from Lieutenant Anderson, who was our command officer the night of this incident. And I think this will exemplify the relationship the fire department and the police department have. I think we're very fortunate in this city that our departments work so well together and that we are there to support each other very well. So Lieutenant Anderson wrote to me and he said, on March 28th at 03:25 in the morning, the Oak Harbor Fire Department and Whidbey General Hospital Emergency Medical Services received a call for a 35-year-old female patient who was unresponsive with shallow breathing. During our response to the scene, ICOM dispatch advised that Oak Harbor PD units were on scene and initiating CPR. Engine 813 and 800 arrived on scene to find Officers Clements and Officer Loma performing chest compressions and providing the patient with an airway using a bag valve mask. The officers had found that the patient was not breathing and had no pulse. The officers hooked the patient up to their AED, which stated no shock advised prior to the fire department's arrival. The officers continued through the second round of the 2-minute cycle of CPR, with the AED again advising no shock advised, due to the patient's heart beginning to beat and the patient attempting to breathe on her own. Both officers continued to assist the patient care until the patient was placed in the back of the transporting ambulance. Lieutenant Anderson further says that he believes the quick response and medical aid that Officer Clements and Officer Loma provided on this critical call had a direct and positive effect on the success of the patient's eventual recovery from her life-threatening medical condition. These two officers continually exemplify the highest standards of the caring profession in the response to assist people in the city of Oak Harbor. Craig asked me to please pass along thanks to Officers Clements and Loma for the assistance and their dedication in providing the highest level of professional service to all the citizens of Oak Harbor. And again, I say we are very fortunate with the working relationships between the police department and the fire department. On so many occasions, the police department gets there first, will initiate CPR, and they'll mend right in with the fire department with the AED, continuing CPR, and anything that we ask of them, they do on a moment's notice. I am so proud and pleased to work with this organization. Of course, I'm proud of my own organization, I want you to know that. But I am so pleased with these individuals, and it's always been a pleasure for the fire department and the police department to work together. Thank you.
And as you're well aware, with the Oak Harbor Fire Department, we're close enough to aid at any given time. This is not something that is required of an officer. It is something that is asked of them. But aid is close enough to where we could wait at any given time for the professionals to show up. We are trained in this to provide it if we need to or we believe we need to. So these officers acted on their own here. So Officer Loma. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
And Officer Clements. Thank you, sir. You like to
In the words of Officer John Valenzuela, thank you.
I think we see a pattern here.
So I have two more, and I'll make these fairly quick. As you're well aware, looking at your council agenda, I have two officers that have also achieved quite the milestone. Law enforcement, they usually hit about the 5 to 7 year period, which is what we call the 7-year itch. And it's generally a make or break moment for law enforcement officers. We don't know whether they're going to stay or go, and most folks go through this. I have two officers that have reached the 10-year mark, and I hope they continue on and stay for another 10 to 20 years. So we'll start off with Officer Ron Esparza. Let's talk a little bit about his commitment to duty. And I give you an example of just the other night. We had quite the past week, in dealing with some of our jail individuals and people we've had in and out of the jail. We had one particular evening last week where he had quite a boisterous mentally ill patient, needed to be transported to Whitby General Hospital with mental health. They were going to be placing him. I asked him, because I had nobody else to draw upon, if he and his particular officer he was training would consider doing this for me. They did it. We didn't think it would be that big of a deal. The following morning, Officer Esparza shows up at my office and tells me how he completed a 17-and-a-half-hour shift dealing with this individual. He didn't come to my office to complain, though he is dealing with a whole load of bureaucracy and a lot of problems and issues down at Whitby General. He came to me talking about recommendations and different things that he could be done to make things a lot better and people that I could speak to. So I want to thank Officer Esparza for that and his commitment to duty. He didn't come into moan and groan about it, went on about his work and his job and dedicated to the community and did exactly what was expected of him. So Officer Esparza, thank you. One more to go.
I just want to say thank you and take this opportunity to thank my wife for all the support she's given me over there.
So my other officer, a name everybody's common or knows, Officer Tony Slowick. And let's talk about a little bit about his commitment to duty. Over the past few weeks, we've been struggling in the jail trying to figure out how we can deal with the recorded phone system and dealing with, some technical issues around that. To give you an idea of what we're doing with the recorded phone system, we're using cassette tapes. Cassette tapes are way outdated, and when they sit on a shelf for a while, they go bad. With the help of Officer Slowick and the system we currently have in place and his technical know-how and knowledge, we're actually able to use the system we currently have at no expense, set it up so not only we could record phone calls out of the jail, which we're allowed to do, record them for the courts, and actually reproduce them on digital CDs as needed. So this is the type of person I have in Officer Slowick, and this is the type of commitment I get on a daily basis. Just the other day, he worked it out with Captain Sturkle to make sure that the ICOM had placed up on our records management system for the mobile system for the officers, all the municipal codes, all the RCWs and everything else, so everybody could access these things in the field. So his brain is constantly going and constantly thinking, and I'm very fortunate to have him at my disposal. So, Officer Slowick. Thank you, sir.
I just want to thank everybody, and love my job and love working at the police department. And I also have to thank my wife and kids, and it's definitely because of them that I'm able to be successful and move forward and everything. So I just appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I'll let you get on with the business. I'll be back later in the evening.
Well, before we do that, any opportunity that we get to take a recess, and we look forward to it. So at this time, we're going to take a recess so we can come down in there and shake your hands. But before we do that, let me thank you for the job that you do, as well as the loved ones, that family, friends that sacrifice and give up your evenings and meals and for letting them protect the citizens of Oak Harbor. You know, we live in such a safe community, and you officers make it safer. So at this time, we're in recess for the next 5 minutes. We're in business. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and reconvene this regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council, bring it back into order. And at this time is the approval of the agenda. What we'd like to do is see if the City Council would entertain a addition to the consent agenda, which is the excused absent request for Jim Campbell at the August 28th and September 3rd, or regular City Council meeting, August 28th workshop, and the September 3rd regular City Council meeting.
I make the motion that we accept his request.
Okay, we got a motion to
Second.
add that to the consent agenda. Second from Councilmember Munns. All those in favor of amending? It's,
Maybe it's not.
at this time, we got a motion to amend the consent agenda, amend tonight's agenda by adding to the consent agenda item an excused absence for upcoming meetings for Councilmember Jim Campbell. Any discussions on that? Okay. All those in favor of amending the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. And any other additions? Okay, then we'll go ahead and accept the agenda as amended. And at this time, we'll go ahead and turn to the public for citizens' comment period, and anyone wishing to address the city council on matters within the jurisdiction of the city and are not on the agenda. So in this case, if there's an agenda item such as, say, the resolution to support NAS Whidbey, we'll be taking public comment at that time. But if there's anyone wishing to address the city council on matters within the jurisdiction of the city and are not on the agenda, may do so now. You may speak to any of the consent agenda items. Matters not appearing on the city council's agenda will not receive action at this meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Presentations will be limited to 3 minutes. You're going to hear the alarm go off. We ask that you state your name and speak into the microphone. And anyone for public comment?
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Once again, my name is Garrett Newkirk, Island County resident. As I see, you have the sign saying jet equals jobs. As a family farm that has been here since 1909, those jets are actually putting our farm out of business. You're actually driving our farm out of business. Because we are in DeGuala Bay, we have no protection from the amount of sound or pollution that is emitted from those aircraft. You're literally driving a family that has helped this island bring a bridge, bring power, bring water, help build roads. You're actually driving a fifth-generation family off the island with that. You say that you love the noise by your shirts. I say, I have invited every single one of you to come out to our property. We have 500 acres out there. And ask you to actually live under it for a week and see how you feel. We have to live under it 24 hours a day. It is considered a war zone. When you have a plane 200 feet off your house and less, that is unacceptable.
So Gary,
And
this
as
was an
well
item.
for your
once
jet
again,
equals jobs,
Gary.
it's a totally different issue.
So when I said this is public comment, commenting on something that's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda.
Well, in
I'm
this
looking
case-
at the jet equals jobs
Okay.
as well,
Well, in this case,
as a farmer
If Gary,
that is being pushed out of business.
we're gonna-
That is, I'm looking for work, and I've been unemployed for 3 years. I would like to know what jobs are actually available for actual citizens. I have called the Chamber of Commerce. They say it's nothing but a promotional tactic, that there is actually no jobs available when I call. I called the city council here, called into the administration office, asked them what actual jobs are available. No jobs are available. So I'd like to know actually from the city council what jobs you are actually promoting, since there are no jobs. For a fifth generation, we're told, go off island, get a job somewhere else, move off the island. Where is that good for families that have been here for over 100 years? I guess if you're looking for the quick buck, I guess that's where you're going to end up. So that will conclude it, and I'll be speaking to the next part about your resolution on the next part. But I would say if you're going to do a jet equals jobs, you better have some jobs available, because there are no jobs available.
Thank you, Mr. Newkirk. Anyone else for public comment?
Is this for what is not on the agenda?
Correct.
Thank you. So is jets equal jobs on the agenda?
Well, in this case, Mr. Newkirk was mentioning that he wanted to comment in reference to the sign, not in reference to the resolution.
I would like to comment on the sign also.
Sure.
My name is Wendy Campbell de Winter. I reside at DeGuala. I am interested in knowing what jets equal jobs means. I'm not certain who came up with the campaign title. It definitely is a catchy title. I think whoever came up with it was brilliant. And I have no clue what it means. The only thing I know is that what I hear in the community is people telling me that they've been without work for years. They've been looking. They can't get work because of preferential Navy. In other words, if you're a family member to Navy, you can get a job before somebody who's not family member. The people who own small businesses on the island, those businesses that have survived the box stores, those business owners tell me, we hire the Navy family members because that works. We don't have to pay a living wage. We don't have to provide health benefits or any other benefits. That doesn't work for people who live in the community. It doesn't work for people who want to continue to live in the community and be able to survive and support themselves as a single individual. When it comes to supporting a family or a spouse, it's not happening. People tell me that finally they had to go off island in order to get a job, or it took them 4 or 5 years to be able to find a job on island. I think it's imperative that each and every person on the town council actually think about this issue, because it's serious in regards to the viability of the economy of the island. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mayor, council members, I'm Larry Rebick. I live full-time in a motorhome, and I'm staying at your great RV park down by the harbor. I have written a small letter here, and I'll read from it more or less. You have a hidden jewel in Stay Sail RV Park, but this jewel is starting to lose some of its luster. In 2009, I appeared here before you with another gentleman who was staying there. We made some suggestions. And guess what? Since then, nothing has changed. In fact, the part is starting to look a little bit desolate. Specifically, the electricity is an issue there. Most RV parks provide 50 amp, 30 amp, and 20 amp service, and it is very reliable. At this park, only 30 amp is provided, and this morning when I measured the voltage in my coach, it was 105 volts. That's far below minimum required. On this little handout, I have an internet suggestion that shows that you should have as a minimum 114 volts. What happens is if it's not high enough voltage, it will affect appliances. So this, I would say, is the #1 priority that needs to be addressed at the park. It's time to do it. 5 years later, it's time to do it. The second item I have on here is gravel pads. The spaces are gravel, or what used to be gravel. It's now mostly, the gravel has become embedded in the earth, and so it's mostly earth and some gravel. A load of gravel on each spot is really needed, and that wouldn't be very expensive to do. Wi-Fi is another amenity that's often provided at RV parks, and this park doesn't have it, but I understand there's a plan maybe to have it next year. So I would recommend that you go ahead with that, provide it, make it free, fast, and reliable. One of the things that's very attractive to the park is the price. It's $20 a night, which is pretty cheap. You might want to consider raising that if needed to provide a little bit more revenue. The people that come to the park are mostly out-of-town visitors. There are some people that spend their lives there. They're only supposed to spend 30 days, but you see them, they stay 30 days and then they move to another spot, and so forth. But most of these visitors are out-of-towners, and out-of-towners are money. They come to town, they spend money, they shop here, they go to the entertainment facilities you have, and so forth. So I would encourage you to spend amount of money, something like $10,000 or $20,000. You could improve the electricity and also provide gravel and this Wi-Fi.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rebick. What we'll probably most likely do, if council's willing, is we can add this as an agenda for upcoming workshop in reference to our future plans for the RV park.
Am I
Because
done?
I think you'll be pleased, just
Oh,
for
I
now,
heard the bell.
only for today.
Okay,
But we'll
on this
encourage
handout,
you to come back.
you
but
can download this, and I have links on it.
Okay,
So
appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Actually, no, actually.
Okay, great.
Good evening. William Skip Patilla. I live at 1091 Southeast Ireland, and I'm a member of the Arts Commission. And my wife Casey and I, as part of the Arts Commission, wanted to come forward today to invite each and every one of you and all the citizens of Oak Harbor to come on down on August 24th, that Saturday, for Driftwood Day. That's a day where you come down, teams or individuals, using only what you find on the beach to build sculptures. And we've got a number of judges that will go by and evaluate the sculptures and make their recommendations and actually present one of 12 different awards. One of those 12 was also a People's Choice Award. So all of you that come and visit can go around, take a look at what there is, and make your recommendation for your vote for People's Choice. Registration starts at 11:30. The build actually starts at 12 o'clock and goes until 1:30, at which point the judging continues until the judges come to a consensus. And we usually have about 4 judges. Captain Mike Nortier, the skipper of the base, is going to be one of the judges with his wife. Kevin Patel from Soul and Bronze out of Sultan. He's been here just about every year that we've had this event. And I believe one of the city councilmen, maybe, I don't have the name yet, but we have 3 to 4 judges that evaluate all these sculptures. Amazing things. And so everyone's invited to come on down and have a fun day building driftwood sculptures out on the beach. And it's almost as much fun to sit around afterwards and watch the tide come in and sweep them away. So come on down, August 24th, 11:30. Once again, the registration, 12 o'clock is when it starts, and we'd love to have people just come out and walk and see what's going on the beach. It's a great event, free too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patilla. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment and turn to the City Council. And we'd entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Got a motion from Councilmember Savadius to accept the consent agenda as amended. Second by Councilmember Almberg. Any discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And at this time, we turn to our city administrator to start off our staff, mayor, and city council members' comments. Dr. Larry Court.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a few items this evening. First of all, in the way of upcoming meetings, I know you have on your schedule, but always a good idea to, as a reminder here, but also for our community who's listening in to know what's coming up. We have a public works tour that 5 members of the council, the mayor, a number of members of staff, and one of our local reporters is going to be attending, and that will take us on Friday to Lake Stevens to see their new wastewater treatment plant, to see what a major project that they have going on down in their downtown on the revetment at the Skagit River. We're going to talk to them about how they were able to pull that funding together, and then we'll be finishing off the tour at the Anacortes expanded water treatment plant for Anacortes, which of course is our water treatment plant. That's where our water comes from, so should be a great tour. Also on August 20th, we have a workshop meeting scheduled from starting at 3 o'clock and going on to 8 o'clock. There will be a 1 hour recess from 5 to 6 for food and in the middle of that, and that will focus on the Affordable Care Act. We'll have Carol Wilmus here from the AWC Benefit Trust to talk about that. She's if not the authority statewide, one of the top authorities statewide on that federal act. And then we'll have the evening session from 6 to 8, focusing on our health benefit options for our employees. I have our regular council workshop meeting on August 28th. We have a number of items which were already calendaring for that meeting. And then finally, the next regular scheduled council meeting will be on September 3rd. Just as a reminder, on the Public Works tour, the bus will be here at 7:45 a.m. here in the parking lot behind the building. I'm told that we are going to have a basket of muffins and also some coffee as well for those folks who arrive a little early. You can get yourself situated and get something in your stomach. So I wanted to report on one of our 3 pumps at our RBC diversion station downtown failed on last Saturday. There's 3 of them, so having one of them go is not good, but we still have 2 operational. This was a catastrophic failure, so it requires replacement of the pump. Based on the assessment of our Public Works staff, this was determined to be an emergency situation, so we have gone ahead and ordered that pump, because it will take 3 weeks to get here. The cost of the pump is $22,799, and we will be bringing that forward to you for retroactive approval as per our emergency ordinance or our emergency procedures. So that is underway, and I believe that concludes my comments. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Court. And next up, Mayor's comments. Just a couple things I would want to point out. The reason that we're having our council meeting again on a Wednesday evening this year, just like every year, is Tuesday night. The first Tuesday in August is we look forward to National Night Out. So last night was National Night Out and well received by everyone. A lot of vendors, but my hat goes off to our police department, our fire department. Great showing, a lot of great education, and whether people were signing up to have a neighborhood watch program in their neighborhood or learning what our fire department does in reference to an aid call. It was a great night. So thank you to the police department. Thank you to the fire department. This weekend is another fun-filled weekend here in Oak Harbor. We've got the car show and the Lions Club putting on the car show again on Saturday. Sunday, we've got the Fidalgo Avenue pig roast, and that'll be well received from 12 to 5, and we look forward to that. And so another great weekend, and we heard from Mr. Skip Patia about Driftwood Days, but these events, continue to make us special and unique and different, and another reason why when people are looking forward to the weekend and they know that something's happening in Oak Harbor. So we look and I think that's about it. I do appreciate the City Council possibly taking up the resolution and possible adoption of the resolution in support of NES Whidbey this evening. And I like the shirts, and I think the back of the shirt says it all when it says Sounds of Freedom. So that being said, oh, the art? No. We're same one. Double checked. Good question. But at this time, we'll turn to our City Council and look for council members' comments, starting off with Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Danny Pagel.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pagel. Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one item. I don't know if you read in the newspaper, but there is a movie firm, I don't know what they call them, guys that make movies, coming to the island this summer to produce a movie, and it's all fitted on this island. The producer of the movie is a guy that grew up on this island. I would also add to that, if you know of any place on the island, something that looks like a mansion, or, I particularly know one little house in the city of Oak Harbor that looks just like a little English cottage, something you would expect to see over there. They're not necessarily this guy, but the movie people are looking for places to make film. So if you know something, contact the Island County Tourism Board, or you can tell me and I'll pass it on to them. One final thing, thanks to the council for allowing me to miss a couple of meetings. It's not for anything important. My youngest son's wife is going to have a baby on Labor Day. And he called and said, "You need to be here." I think he wants me there so I can hold him up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Romberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of motions to make here that are related to the economy, and it's also related to the military. But before I make these motions, I would like to point out that in the last few weeks, I've had conversations with Kathy Reed at the Chamber, Lance Gibbon, our new superintendent, Dr. Gibbons at the school district, and Jill Johnson, Commissioner at Island County. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is that we have on the horizon approximately 7 squadrons, Poseidon squadrons, coming into Oak Harbor. And over that period of time, it is projected that we will get approximately 1,000 of those crew members to come in here. And out of that, you have probably double that for their families who come along. These people are customers in the stores, large stores, small stores. They are students in our schools. They are part of the fabric of our community also. And Anacortes right now is basically a step ahead of us in that they're already going after these members of the squadrons to have them come into their community. Now, if we want to have them come to this community, we have to do our job too. And therefore, I am going to make a motion to hopefully consolidate our efforts with the Chamber, with the school district, and with Island County, and with the realtors to have a strategy that's combined, that's effective, that goes after these members of the different squadrons coming in here, because we have a great community, we have a great school district. We want them to come here. We don't want them to go to Anacortes and then we get the leftovers like jet noise. Nobody likes jet noise, but it is also part of the fabric of our military and of our economy. I grew up in South Seattle near the airport. I know what it's like. I lived for 20 years under the jet runway at the OLF. I know what it's like. It's livable for me. I'm speaking for myself. So that's all I need to say about that. I'll move on to the motion then, if I may. I move that the mayor and staff provide the council for discussion at our August 28th, 2013 workshop, an agenda item to formulate a joint marketing strategy with the Oak Harbor School District, Chamber of Commerce, Island County, local realtors, and the city to attract the new NASWI squadron personnel to locate in the Oak Harbor area.
We have a motion from Councilmember Romberg, second from Councilmember Munns. Any further discussion in reference to that motion? Councilmember Sephidius.
I don't think I'll have any discussion. I just would like to read it, Mayor, please, before we vote.
Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea, but aren't we already doing this with our new economic development board that we've got set up? Is that not part of economic development, and isn't Mr. Spoo including that?
Well, actually, we're doing, good question, but we created the ad hoc economic development committee, but I'll applaud Councilmember Romberg for doing this, because I think this is exactly what we need to do, as we have been working on the strategic economic plan. A week ago, we did get together with a group of realtors from the North Puget Sound Realtors Association, but to combine, making sure that we're all on the same page can't hurt. And so, yeah, I applaud it.
Okay, I'm not against doing this. I'm against duplication of effort. That's the reason I asked the question. I'm going to vote yes on this.
Yeah, Councilmember Romberg.
Thank you, Mayor. My conversations with Kathy Reed at the Chamber and Jill Johnson and Dr. Gibbons is that they are very much interested in joining with us, even in joining in the workshop, they realize that this is what they want to do, and they realize that there is strength in a combined effort to pull this together. And the school district has recently hired a new information officer. The previous information officer, Joe Hunt, moved to Minnesota. We miss him. I certainly miss him. And I understand the new employee has a lot of talent that will help us in this area also. So we are a community. We are a little bit behind the curveball compared to Anacortes right now. We need to get out in front of that.
Councilman Munns.
I'd like to add a suggestion, and I'm not sure, Ms. Loeffler could probably on parliamentary correct me on which way to do it, but I'd like to add the builders. If the builders don't build apartments, condos, houses that these people need, I think they need to be part of the situation, plus to encourage them to hire local talent here, the electricians and the mudders and, you know, whatever framers that we need. It's got to be a real community effort and energy put into this.
Okay, so, Councilman Munns, if you wish to make a motion to amend the motion to add after the local realtors, the builders, we can,
So
you
is
can, you can make that motion.
a friendly motion, or how?
It's a motion.
Okay. I move to amend Mr. Omberg's motion that after local realtors that we add builders.
Second.
We got a motion from Councilman Munns, second from Councilman Campbell to add the word builders after realtors. Any discussion in reference to the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment by adding the word builders to the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. This motion is amended. Any further discussion regarding the main motion? Mayor Pro Tem Pagal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a good motion, and in line with this, I think should go with the Planning Commission and Development Services in planning for the next 20 years for coordinating with the development of the enterprise area in Golden Road and Oak Harbor Road. We need more of those development also for residential areas to accommodate the increase in Navy personnel, commercial areas, those enterprises that we need to coordinate with these.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone? Councilman Omberg.
The second motion that I have.
Wait. No,
Okay.
we're not done. We're not done with
I'm
that.
sorry.
Any further discussion regarding the main motion? Councilman Savidius.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just, say that I agree wholeheartedly with your comments. We can't wait 6 to 12 months to start this discussion. The discussion will take some time, and any time lost will be behind the curve that much more, so I wholeheartedly support it as well. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor of the main amended motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. That motion passes unanimously. Mr. Omberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a second motion then. In light of the fact that the Chamber's contract is going to expire near the end of the month, and we want to get this motion number 1 item going, bring them on board.
Wait. When you say end of the month?
I meant end of the year.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Thanks for the correction. I move that the mayor and staff provide the council on September 17th, 2013, a contract between the city and the Chamber of Commerce for review and possible renewal.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion from Councilmember Omberg, second from Councilmember Campbell. Turn back to Councilmember Omberg to speak to the motion.
Well, I think it really speaks for itself in that if we're going to have a team, we have to have all of the paperwork with that group so they have a vested interest in this. And I'm looking forward to working with them as well as the school district and the realtors and the builders. So that is my motion. Thank you.
Any further discussion regarding that motion? Councilmember Savidius.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just support it as well. Sitting on the board for many years, it's always a little unnerving waiting until November, December, when you've got a year contract that you're always renewing. So I would appreciate it as well being brought forward ahead of time, with a little extra time. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay. Anything else? Councilmember Romberg.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Gomertz, okay. Then we move on to Councilmember Munns.
The only comment I have is to thank the community for helping Help House, our local food bank. But in checking with them and being on the board, we are still running behind on food to supply to our neighbors that need a little extra help. So if you're going to the grocery store and you see a sale on tuna or pasta or baked beans or ramen or whatever, they can certainly use food items or cash. I mean, $5 goes a long way if Help House is using it to buy from some of our wholesalers that we can. But there's a lot of people, as you say, without jobs, or some of our senior citizens, because they've had to spend more on prescription drugs, that they're running short on food. And so please don't forget your neighbors this summer. Everybody thinks about the food bank come Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I just want to say thank you for your help, but they really still need help. So please remember Help House when you're going to the store. So thank you very much. No other comments, sir.
Okay. Councilmember Severns.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the Economic Development Council lunch on 17 July, and also the Cascade Loop road show that was at the EDC office, and that was on the 25th. Obviously, we're part of the Cascade Loop, and they've got a new brochure coming out this year, very, very beautiful color, and several places to visit, along the way. My interest especially in that is I think that the more people we can attract, traveling people coming through. Obviously, the movie production people were discussed. We've got opportunity that's always there, and the more we promote ourselves, and that Cascade Loop promotion is a way to do it. The tourist people were there, and I think Mr. Campbell sits on that board. But so I'm gonna stay involved in that for sure. I also the mayor didn't bring a prompt, but I did for the so you can get the date out there. The viewing public can make sure that they have the date and the time, and that's free. They're looking for donations, but that's free pig, or free pork, I should say. Anyway, flip it over, and we've got the Oak Harbor Music Festival, Labor Day weekend, and that is a heck of a party. That's free also. 30 bands this year. I understand that budget is over $50,000 to $50,000 worth of really good music. So call your friends, call your relatives, and come here on Labor Day weekend. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Severns. And Councilmember Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. I brought no visual aids. I couldn't attempt to top that, so let's move on.
Okay. Then we'll move on to ordinances and resolutions. We see ordinance 1662 coming up in front of council, and we'll turn to our city administrator, Dr. Larry Court. Dr. Court.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Have a relatively small change to the section of our municipal code that addresses the Oak Harbor Youth Commission. This idea originated with the Youth Commission, and you see in your packet copies of the minutes where this item was discussed, and their recommendation that the council consider approving this change. And if approved, this change would, in effect, set up a procedure whereby any member of the Youth Commission who has missed 3 consecutive absences would be dismissed or may be dismissed. It is discretionary. So that is the only change that's being proposed at that time. And the action, if you agree with this, the proposal by the Youth Commission would be to adopt ordinance number 1662.
Thank you, Dr. Court. This time we'll turn to the public, and if there's any public comment, anyone wishing to weigh in regarding this ordinance can do so now. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and turn to the council then and see if council has any questions, comments, starting off with Councilmember Severns.
No question. After reading it, makes sense to me.
Okay.
Is there a recommendation? So.
Councilmember Romberg.
I have the same comment. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Pagano.
No question, Your Honor.
Councilmember Campbell.
I'm confused.
Councilmember Campbell.
Are we talking about 1662 or 1664?
It's 1662 in my packet.
Okay, because what I got by email said 1664, so it's okay. I'm okay. Thank you. It's okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Councilmember Munns.
No questions.
And Councilmember Servedius.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance 1662.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilmember Servedius, second by Councilmember Munns, to go ahead and adopt ordinance 1662. And any further discussion? All those in favor of ordinance 1662 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, and that passed unanimously. And we move on. Our next item is Resolution 1317. Turn to our Senior Planner, Kat Kamak. Mr. Kamak.
Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. Let me pull up this presentation. Good evening. Kat Kamak, Senior Planner, here to present the resolution for the 20-year population projection for Island County. I'll just go off the cues from the presentation, but what I'd like to do is present some data that supports the population projection that the Island County is proposing, combined with some other statistics that we have in terms of the growth that we're going to experience in Oak Harbor based on the base expansion. Hopefully this is data that will back up Mr. Allenberg's earlier motion on trying to get some plans together to deal with the increase. Well, hopefully present some numbers that actually back that up. So why do we have to consider, as a city of Oak Harbor, Island County's 20-year population projection? Well, it's an integral step in the 2016 update that the city has to do with our comp plan. And so by agreeing with the county's overall population, we set up a framework within which we can discuss the city's growth and the city's population. So it's really important for us to all agree on what that total population for Island County is. It's also a requirement of the GMA and the countywide planning policies that all plans within Island County, all the different jurisdictions, be consistent with each other and plan with the same numbers. And so this is another key element in bringing that consistency to our planning efforts. So the methodology that was used by Island County, the OFM, Office of Financial Management for the state of Washington, is tasked with providing population projections for all counties within the state. And they provide three ranges: low, medium, and high. What Island County did was to choose the medium as a base, and I've provided the table at the bottom where you can see the low, medium, and high. Of course, low didn't make sense because I think logically there's no reason to believe that Island County is actually going to lose population, which is what the 2036 shows in their low projection as lower than what we are today. There's also no reason to go high, very high, almost a 40-50% increase from what we see today. There's no reason to go that far either. So what Island County did was to start with medium as the most realistic scenario. Now, the state and the OFM does allow for local conditions to impact how you choose that range. So they started off with the medium, and Island County looked at some of the data that the state uses in order to do these projections. And they found some things that are locally affected differently than how the state perceives it. So one of them is fertility rates. So when the state looks at the population and they look at assigning a fertility rate to the county projections, when they look at Island County, they look at Oak Harbor's fertility rate, which is high, and they look at Island County, other than Oak Harbor, and it's low. And the range is so vast that they just pick a medium number to kind of do that, to assign the fertility. They're doing it for the entire county, and they don't know all the details of what's happening locally. So what Island County has done is made a good case to say that that's a little high, given that the median population for Island County is really high, 45, 47, and most people are outside of the fertility rate to have that kind of rate. So they kind of dropped the fertility rate a little bit for their calculation. They also looked at the in-migration of people coming in, moving into the island based on employment. They looked at national trends in terms of commute. We all know gas prices are going up, and it's not really desirable for people to commute long distances. So if people living in Oak Harbor commuting to Seattle or greater distances is becoming less and less. So taking some of these factors and trends that have been happening in the last 20, 30 years, they've suggested that it be a little lower than the median projection. So what they proposed on May 30th was 85,387. Now, at that time, when we were in discussions with Island County, we did not know for sure what the increase of the base expansion would be. We had received an announcement saying that 7 squadrons would be located here in Oak Harbor, but we did not know what how many people would accompany that expansion. So at that time, we asked Island County to hold that number. We'll get some information from the Navy, do some calculations, and then provide them with that additional increase, and then they can add that to this base 85,387. So Oak Harbor contacted the base, and this is the graph that our Navy contact provided us. And as you can see, I don't have a, see if I can move the mouse. That's all right. I'll try and point out. So as you can see, the graph shows a trend downward initially. And the Navy has actually been losing population over the last 4 years. And if you actually note that there is some housing vacancy and so on. Thank you, Steve. So they have been reporting some loss in population. And if you actually, and it's very small to see, but even OFM has actually tracked those numbers, and this year actually we've seen a decrease in population. So the graph indicates that the trend over the last 4 or 5 years is that there's been a slight decrease. And then they show today over there. This is not working, or maybe it is. There you go. That's a good one. Okay. So they showed today where we are, where they are actually, and what they have told us is for the next 4 squadrons that will come before 2015, that there will be a slightly less than 500. They didn't give us exact numbers, so we're extrapolating from the graph. So there will be slightly less than 500 people that will be part of that initial 4 squadrons. And they also mentioned that the reason it's less than 500 is because some of the existing military personnel will be trained to work with the new squadrons, and therefore it won't be true new people coming in. They'll be actually changing roles. And then we have additional squadrons coming in after that, and they've indicated that you get about 265 military personnel with every squadron that's coming in after that. So what that adds up to is, again, initial announcement was 7 squadrons. There were recent estimates based on the chart, talks about 4 squadrons by 2015. They claim that 3 is yet to be confirmed. Basically, they're doing some analysis on it. They're just not ready to make it public. But we should plan for the 7 because that's what was announced. So approximately 450 with the initial 4 squadrons, and then 795 with the 3 additional squadrons that are coming in after that, for a total of 1,245. So that's the number of military people associated with the increase in the squadrons. We ran these numbers by our contact at the Navy, and they thought that those are good numbers to go by. Yes.
1,245 sailors?
Yes.
The sailor community is a cross-section of the civilian community. What about all the kids and the wives and all that kind of stuff?
I'm getting to that.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll just deal with the number of people that are coming with the squadrons. We'll get to the family portion of it. So what we cannot do is assume that all the 1245 people will live in Oak Harbor. So we have to consider that they will live, it's by choice that some people will live elsewhere. But we can assume that a high percentage, and a high percentage, about 80%, could probably live on Whidbey Island. And these are the reasons why we think that, and I have some numbers to go to back that up as well. So first of all, natural desire to live within a short commute of work. I think everybody has a natural desire to stay as close as possible to work, so we'll have to take that into assumption. The Washington statistics show that people are willing to commute no more than 26 minutes to work. This is just an average. I'm sure there are a lot of people that do more than that, and there's a lot of people who do less. But that's about the average. So if we draw a 26-minute radius around Oak Harbor, it will include Anacortes as a community that is within that distance. So we look at Anacortes and to see how do we stand out, how do we differ from Anacortes, and what makes Oak Harbor more attractive. And I have some data on the next slide to show that. But we'll probably look at vacancy rates. In the sense, where there's housing is where these people will tend to go towards. If there's limited housing, then it's going to be more expensive, less choices. So naturally, people will look towards where there are more choices and where there's more housing. So, well, again, going back to transportation costs, again, you know, gas prices are going up. People like to spend less on gas. And I've been told, I don't have kids. I don't have kids in the school district. But I've been told that some recent changes have been done that the school district, Oak Harbor School District, is competitive in any of the other school districts here. And so investing in capital facilities and programs make that attractive. And so these are the factors that we can say contributes towards a high percentage of people that will stay in Oak Harbor. So data related to that, again, going back to the vacancy rate, you look at the vacancy rate for Anacortes and Oak Harbor, they're the same percentage. But if you look at the numbers, of course, Oak Harbor's got more units available, especially if you look at for the rent. 4.9% to 2.1% more units available in Oak Harbor. The reason why Anacortes has 9.1 is basically because of the seasonal and recreational use. They have more homes that are for recreational use, and you can see the 2.8% versus the 0.8% here, and I think that's where the major difference is. So if you look in the numbers, we'll see that Oak Harbor has more choices in actual housing than Anacortes does. So we can further look at that. This is Zillow is a site that's a very popular site for looking up homes. If you look at it, snapshot, this is back in June. You look at the rental houses, that's the vacancy rate for Oak Harbor, and that's for Anacortes. That's telling how much housing is available and the natural tendency for people to gravitate towards where there's those choices. These are for home sales. Again, this is Anacortes, that's Oak Harbor. Again, we have more housing, I think, for sale here on the island than we do in Anacortes. So if we take a high percentage will move or stay in Oak Harbor, that's about 1,000 people of the total 1,200 or so. And here's where the 2.53 is the average household size for Oak Harbor. It's been pretty consistent over the last decade or two. And so that accounts for all the sailors that come here that are married, not married, ones with kids. That's just the average for Oak Harbor. So if you multiply that with 1,000 people, that's the number we get, 2,500 people or so, that we think will be part of this increase. So we provided that number to Island County. Island County added that to their May 30th number of 85,387 because they did their calculations without considering any increase with the Navy. And so 87,917 is what the proposed population, and they have agreed to do that, and they are moving forward with their planning commission and county commissioners to adopt that. And with the city doing that, we are saying that we are consistent with the overall planning efforts that the county has taken on. The Planning Commission took a look at this at the June 25th meeting, and they have also recommended that the City Council accept the 20-year projections. So we recommend that the council consider this resolution and approve it.
Okay, thank you,
Happy
Mr.
to answer
Karanka.
any questions.
Appreciate it. I'll turn to the public. If there's anybody wishing to comment in reference to this resolution, they can do so now. We're going to ask you to state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Yes, once again, Garrett Newkirk, North Whidbey Island resident. I feel that these numbers are not completely accurate, as they have not exactly the amount of folks that have moved off the island, and does not break it down regionally as actually North Whidbey, City of Oak Harbor, Central Whidbey, or South Whidbey, to where the resident population is going to be. As to the amount of military, you have already more than enough vacant housing, actually, for city. Rents to actual non-military personnel, actually rents to civilians. That is already a quarter empty. Seems kind of ridiculous that they would even be thinking about housing anybody anywhere else other than on their own reservation. That actually pays 0 taxes. Forest City pays 0 taxes. And you allowed that. And as far as I'm understanding as well from this population, that with that, we get no pay in lieu of taxes for the school district. They were supposed to get $3 million. They only got $300,000 because the military negotiated the reduction in the amount of monies the school district would get. So you need to think about that when you're looking at the population and where they're going to go, because you're actually going to house people that pay 0 taxes to the schools. In those federal reservations, they pay 0 taxes. They pay 0 taxes on any of the equipment, services, anything that are out there, but we still provide them with services. As taxpayers, we provide that through our taxes. They should be paying their full fair share. Whereas Forest City should be contributing to the community instead of robbing from the community. That is a multi-million-dollar corporation. And I advise you to look into it and maybe stop that practice of that amount of money going out of this community, since you say that they contribute $590 million per everyone on this board sits on that Save NES Would-Be task force. And you keep touting that they contribute $590 million every year. You're promoting taxes to go directly out of your own jurisdictions. With this population, where's the money going? It's not going anywhere. Nobody in the county's getting any of the business. Doesn't seem that the actual numbers are correct. You need to relook at that and actually get the actual truth on it, of where these people are going to be going, because you're not going to get any of that money.
Thank you, Mr. Newkirk. Anyone else?
Wendy Campbell de Winter, Doug Walla. I have one comment. My comment is in regards to the competition from Anacortes. For the past 6 or 7 years, Navy personnel have been moving up to Anacortes, primarily officers, but other chiefs, other personnel. The reason has been they want to get away from the noise. In the past 2 years, or rather 18 months, since the F-18s have been flying at the north end with no muffler system, the exodus of people, of enlisted people moving north to Anacortes has increased. We have no idea what's going to happen to the OLF. Have I lost my mic? It doesn't. Great,
Actually,
thanks.
no, we can still hear
Thanks,
you.
Jim.
And we're
And-
speaking to the resolution.
Pardon me?
And we're speaking to the resolution in
The
reference.
resolution of population. I'm proposing that we don't really have a clue. These are the projections. They make sense to me. They make sense, period. And yet, with what's going on with the continued flights at the north end and the continued flights over the city, imagine that the exodus that has ramped up in the past 18 months will ramp up even more. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment regarding this resolution? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment, turn to the City Council, bring back Mr. Kamek, and starting off with Councilmember Servadius.
Thank you, Mayor. With regards to the resolution, our goal or our objective here is whether or not to accept these numbers, and I see no reason not to accept them based on what you presented. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Munns.
I can't see why not. If additions or they take away some units, then you'll just adjust as it comes about.
Absolutely. If they provide us with additional information, Island County is willing to work with the additional information, and so will we. So we'll try and we have 3 years to figure it out. We're not going to adopt our 2016 update any earlier. So in the process of doing all our plan updates, if the numbers significantly change, whether they're going to be reduced or whether they're going to increase, it will impact our planning effort, and therefore we'll have to take that into consideration. And when we do that, we'll be back here talking about it.
Well, thank you for all your diligence and your work. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you. We're going to have an agreement with the county that we're going to use this set of information. And the reason I asked that question, I can remember when I was in my first term on the city council, we had an issue that we were working on, and I can't remember what it was, but it dealt with annexation of property or something along that line. And the county refused to use the numbers that the state was given. Are we going to get them to sign on the dotted line that when this is official, they're going to stick with it?
That's the hope, and that's why we're doing these official actions so that everybody has acted on it. And so we will eventually get to the countywide planning policies, which will end up being an agreement of sorts. And
Okay.
so with us all step by step working with these numbers, these are the numbers that will get into those agreements, which we'll eventually hopefully all agree on.
Good on you. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Begau.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Kamek, when we accept this resolution for the population projection by Island County, it will greatly affect also our planning for the next 20 years, and that'll be done by the Planning Commission. One of the areas that caught my eye, the median age population for Island County, and this will surely affect also Oak Harbor for the services that we provide, the housing, jobs, and so forth. But on this one, on page 5 of number 10, is the median age population for the last 30 years. From 1980 through 2010, the median age of the population increased from 29.26 to 43.27 years in 2010. If this trend continues, for next 30 years, the median age would become about 60 years old. And that kind of scary. The population by that time, they'll have gray hair like me.
Yes.
Now, what I'm referring to will be the services that we provide for the seniors. It's very important that the Planning Commission take on also the senior living and the senior services that we provide to them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a very good point. The Planning Commission is looking at population demographics as part of the 2016 update. And median age is a very critical piece of data to consider in planning efforts. It's also a key piece of data that differentiates Oak Harbor from Island County. So if you look at the median age of Island County, as you said, it's about 44, which is pretty high, which basically median age is saying half the people in Island County are above 43 years old and half the people are below 43 years old. But if you look at the median age of Oak Harbor, it's about 26 something. So Oak Harbor is balancing Island County's older population with the young, and therefore it is different services that need to be provided in Oak Harbor versus the services that be provided in Island County. So these are all demographic data that the Planning Commission is looking at. If the City Council is interested in looking at some of this demographic information, we'll be happy to do that and provide a presentation. But they've already looked at some of these population demographics and are considering it as part of in the update process for the plan.
That'll be good. And thank you for your work, Mr. Campbell.
Councilman Romberg.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I don't have anything to add to the numbers here, obviously. I just know from philosophically, in a democratic civil society, there are trade-offs. We're always looking for a balance. And the balance here is providing the military with the Navy's mission being focused more in the Pacific now. As we went back to DC, they made that really clear to us that NAS Whidbey is a pivotal point in their mission. And OLF and Altfield and Boardman are critical training areas for that mission. There are trade-offs that we have to live with, and I think that as we work with the Navy, that there will be scheduling adjustments that have to be made to accommodate the people in the area. None of us will get it one way or our way. Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilmember Severance.
Thank you, Mayor. I am impressed by the work that you have done here. I know that I'm on that Economic Development Ad Hoc Committee, and Ethan Spoo has provided some of that to our committee, and it's very interesting. So I'm prepared to make a motion for that. I move for approval of resolution number 13-17.
Second.
We've got a motion from Councilmember Severance, second by everybody. Second by Councilmember Campbell. That we approve resolution number 13-17. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion of approving resolution number 13-17 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, now that's passed unanimously. This time we'll just go ahead and be in a quick recess for the next 5 minutes.
Let me think about it.
Okay. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and reconvene this regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council, bring it back into order, and looking at our... Next up on the agenda is Resolution 1320, and this is a resolution supporting Naval Air Station Whidbey Island and its training activities and facilities. At the recent workshop, I approached the City Council in reference to the possibility of bringing forward a resolution. I appreciate the support, and so tonight before you is a resolution, but wanted to share with you a letter I received from the Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce yesterday. It says, "Dear Mayor Dudley, the Greater Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce is pleased to support the City of Oak Harbor in its effort to stand solidly behind Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, its personnel, and the Navy's mission here. The Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce is about business and economic stability. NAS Whidbey Island continues to be the number one NAS Whidbey Island continues to be the number one economic driver in Island County. Losing even a small portion of that economic base could have a serious consequence for our business owners. Island County doesn't have the deep pockets and large industrial centers found in other communities across the country. Here, the Navy is the big business that helps our economic wheel keep turning. So, if the Chamber stands in support of our business community, then it stands in support of NAS Whidbey Island and its mission. The bottom line is that the Navy is good for business in Oak Harbor and all of Island County, and we cannot afford to lose it. We want to keep our reputation as a first-class place to visit, live, and raise a family, and to do business. The Chamber is proud to support the city's resolution. Sincerely, Kathy Reed, Executive Director, Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce. What I would do is turn to Councilmember Munns, and if you would read for us this resolution. I think those watching and would love to hear what the resolution has to say. Councilmember Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 1320. A resolution of the City of Oak Harbor of Washington supporting Naval Air Station Whidbey Island and its training activities and facilities. Whereas the sum total of the positive economic impact on Oak Harbor and Island County from Naval Air Station Whidbey Island directly and indirectly is staggering. And Naval Air Station Whidbey Island is by far the county's largest employer, constituting 43% of all jobs in Island County. Naval Air Station Whidbey Island contributes $409 million directly to the Island County economic and wages paid to military personnel, which is 44% of all county wages, not including the civilians it employs. Military personnel receive medical benefits, and veterans receive medical benefits, pensions, and disability payments that total $61,100,000, much of which is spent in Oak Harbor and Island County businesses. Veterans make up 29% of Oak Harbor population and 17% of Island County population, and these veterans are vital to the social fabric of Oak Harbor now and in the future. Military personnel provide the majority of volunteer hours in community institutions, including schools, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Little League, churches, and other community programs. The training needs of Naval Air Station Whidbey Island for unpeded airspace, low-altitude flights, touchdowns and takeoffs in Oak Harbor, outlying field, and South Central Washington are crucial in preserving existing and future operations of the base. And the training activities of Naval Air Station Whidbey Island prepare military personnel to defend the United States of America and theaters around the world. And the Oak Harbor City Council, mayor, and citizens are indebted to the sacrifices made by the military personnel of the United States of America, in particular those of Naval Air Station Whidbey Island. Whereas the military personnel stationed at Naval Air Station Whidbey Island who have selflessly sacrificed are also the fathers, mothers, sons of this country, this state, the county, and the city. Now therefore we be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Oak Harbor express strongly support for Naval Air Station Whidbey Island and its personnel and its operations in training activities, and express gratitude for the service of its personnel to their fellow countrymen and women.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Munns. This time we'll turn to the public. Anybody wishing to comment in reference to the possible adoption of the resolution can do so now. We're going to have you state your name, remind you that you have 3 minutes.
Once again, Garrett Newkirk, Island County, North Whidbey. Actually, one of the families that owns the 500 acres in Degwalla Bay that is affected, directly affected by these training operations that you say is a non-issue. We live under it 24 hours a day. As I have asked you before, this whole entire Save NAS Whidbey task force to come out and actually experience these EA-18s that are causing the health and public safety issue for us civilians. The best place for these planes is the Yakima Valley Training Center over in Yakima Valley, where there's absolutely zero population, except for the folks that want to be subjected to it. We civilians do not support these EA-18s type of aircraft or their operation, because it is deafening, from that deafening noise and the ground shaking that caused from these aircraft, not to mention the amount of cancer-causing pollutions that are emitted onto us without any concern. I find it gravely ill that this city council is willing to jeopardize the civilian population to this. I see that you're willing to sacrifice us on the north and the folks over in EB's Reserve for your own ill-gotten gain when you won't subject yourselves to it. So I'm hoping by seeing all your shirts that you're going to allow the military to fly their FCLP patterns directly over the city and directly over your homes, because you think it's a non-issue for us civilians. And I hope you take that into account. And maybe the best thing you should do is do what you did for Don Boyer and actually buy the people out. That would be a better situation.
That's what it's all about.
So instead of paying off one person, you can buy the rest of us out that don't want to be subjected to this health and public safety problem. That is a big issue for us. You paid him $2.2 million for less than 9 acres. We have 500 acres that we cannot do anything with. We are barely existing there. We have no chance of economic improvement, no chance of quality of life. With 7 squadrons coming here of P-8s, and then every single EA-18 that the Navy has coming here, not to mention the earth-shattering F-35 that you think isn't coming, but will be coming. That thing is so dangerous. I mean, the skies in North Whidbey are going to be
Thank you, Mr.
so
Newkirk.
congested,
Thank
there's
you.
going to be no
Thank
safe
you.
place.
Thank
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else?
Hi, well, I'm Dr. Baker, and P.O. Box 790 in Freeland is where we get some of our mail. It's nice to see the police chief has a uniform now. When I was here last time, he was new and didn't have one. Well, basically, what I wanted to say is that I'm a combat wounded Marine, and a lot of my buddies and I were saved in situations in combat because of the Navy and Marine Corps pilots who are learning how to fly. And I just hope that I understand that it's noisy. I used to live near a B-52 base, and you know, your windows rattle all the time, but you know, they had to fly off somewhere. I just think that this is a good idea for you to support the military, especially since you're talking about the dependents, the kids that go to the school. I don't think they know that there's a lot of discussion. This is the first time I've really been at a governmental meeting where there was a lot of discussion about the kids and the wives and the husbands that, you know, are left behind while their loved ones are in harm's way. And I'm glad to see that you're supporting the Jets Equal Jobs. I don't know if that's I know it makes sense, but I just want to say thank you, and I know that the pilots that are training here will save lives.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Wayne Locke. I live at 1962 Northeast Sumner Drive. I'm in the noise zone somehow. I'm a realtor, and I deal with people and I sell them houses, and we have a discussion on noise. I just wanted to share with you an experience that I had today. A young Navy family came to me, wanted to buy a house, wanted nothing to do with noise. I said, fine. So we looked at houses, and by golly, they found a house in Admiral's Cove. So I have this chart that I shared with them. I mentioned it verbally 5 times, that Admiral's Cove is quiet right now, but don't count on it because it's only temporary. If you look at this noise zone chart, Admiral's Cove is right in the throat of the approach to the runway. And they found this house and fell in love with it on Rickover. So I said to them, he just got back into town yesterday. I took him out to show him the house this morning at 9 o'clock. He fell in love with the house. He thinks it's great. They have a child less than a year old, and that's their concern, that he'll be able to sleep. So in the process of showing him the house, he said to me, he said, Mr. Locke, he said, do you mind if I talk to the neighbors about the noise? And I said, absolutely not. Please do. It's going to be a decision you make. He said, we'll come to the office right after we talk to him. That was 10 o'clock this morning. They called me at 4:30 this afternoon and said, we didn't get your office. We got tracked. We went somewhere else. I said, well, how did your interview go with the neighbors? And he said, wonderful. We're buying the house. I said, why? He said, because talking to the neighbors, they didn't seem to think that the noise would be anything for us to worry about. That's a buyer that did his own research for whatever it's worth, and I came here to share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. Anyone else?
My name is Shane Hoffmeyer. I am a proud Oak Harbor resident. I'm also the past chair of the Whidbey Island Democratic Club, and I just wanted to take this time to personally say that I strongly support NAS Whidbey Island and their use of the OLF for field landing carrier practice. I also support the strong stand that all of Oak Harbor's elected officials have taken in support of NAS Whidbey Island and their use of the outlying field. I would like to thank the City Council, the Mayor, and City Administration for bringing this proclamation forward for a vote tonight. I encourage the unanimous support of this proclamation so that we can send the strongest message possible that Oak Harbor and Whidbey Island support and love the Navy's presence. Lastly, Oak Harbor is my favorite place in this whole world. I love Oak Harbor, and not all of that love is just for the mountain views and scenic beaches. No, a part of that love is for the planes. Not the planes on sticks as you come into town either. No, they are cool. The love I have for Oak Harbor, a part of what makes Oak Harbor home, is being able to see planes flying over and being able to hear them too. That is a sight and a sound that I love. I know the noise generated by these beautiful planes is often referred to as the sound of freedom. But to my family and me, it is simply the sound of home. Again, to our City Council, thank you for your continued efforts to protect Oak Harbor and for your continued efforts to protect the livelihoods of so many. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffmeyer. Anyone else?
My name's Lucas Yonkman. I'm Oak Harbor resident. I was born and raised
hold on.
here in
Wait.
Oak Harbor.
Hold on. Okay, we're going to have you start over so we can hear you.
I lived off of Jones Road for 24 years and was raised right underneath of these aircraft. Somehow I survived. Also, speaking to the Jets Equals Jobs, my father's company is located in that same spot, and he's been building homes for members of the military since 1972, and that has kept his business alive. And currently, I'm the owner of a construction company which relies on federal contracting. And based on the contracts I may receive in my business, I could add as many as 10 to 30 jobs to our community. And so Jets do equal jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yonkman. Anyone else?
I am Wendy Campbell DeWinter of Dagwalla. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself as well as my family, the Lyle family, which landed at Eby's Landing in 1852. I'm curious as to the mayor and Oak Harbor Town Council's feeling the need to have a resolution in order to support the Navy. Obviously, everyone who resides here supports the Navy. That is a prerequisite to being here. Those who do not are not here. From what I have read, the resolution appears to be an extremely superficial document, lacking research, critical thinking, and with manipulated data, lacking in relativity and primarily relative to the insular village of the Navy. The truth is, we need to get very serious about supporting the Navy if the Navy is going to remain a valid presence in our community. I don't have the experience that any of you have gotten that yet, that we need to get serious. I feel that the council needs to get serious about a resolution of this nature by doing their homework, actually doing it, as well as taking input from the community who has been doing their homework, studying a complete plethora of government documents, giving a broad and comprehensive picture. I request that a vote not be taken until this important work has been completed. I'm extremely disappointed by what appears to be a knee-jerk reaction by the mayor and the Oak Harbor Town Council. I understand that there may be a lot of fear. I understand that each and every one of you may be terrified, as you have exhibited by various modes. I understand that you may feel that the economic base of this county and this town is at survival in regards to the Navy. Nobody can create anything. Nobody can make a difference if they feel that they're at survival. It's imperative that we get out of the survival mode. If, for some awful reason, the base was to disappear, what would happen is that our economy would most likely catapult by 4 times, as has been exhibited by other areas that have lost their bases.
Okay, thank you very much.
We
We'll
can
go ahead.
do
Nope.
better
Thank you very much.
than what we
Yeah,
have done.
I appreciate it.
With this resolution.
At this time, we'll go ahead and
The Navy
see
and
if
the
anyone else
constituents
wishes to
deserve
go ahead
it.
and come on up.
And thank you,
Thank you
Rick,
very
for
much.
making my point.
Not a problem. What I would also point out is that as we look at doing research, we're City of Oak Harbor, we're a city council versus town council. Anyone else wishing to address the city council on the resolution? No? Okay. At this time, we'll go ahead and close public comment, turn to the city council in reference to discussion, questions on the resolution, starting off with Councilmember Severance.
Thank you, Mayor. I came to Whidbey Island for a job in 1974 and didn't know anything about the Navy base being here, as a matter of fact, until I was just driving on to getting close to the bridge in the evening. It was dark and these planes were flying, and I was just kind of surprised. Eastern Washington was where I had come from. Hardly any traffic on the island at that point. And I've soon, being in the title insurance business, learned about the Navy and what it did for the community. I did title work long before they even recorded that racetrack to let the public know where the extra noise was. That was a move, obviously, to make it better. I remember quite the same kind of thing going on, especially OLF and the noise. I don't know how many years ago, definitely it was before 9/11. And I remember the Navy posting their flight times at that point, meeting with people, working with people. But I don't think it's the fact that they've done nothing. I think they've done quite a bit, and I think they're willing to do more to work with the noise that's going on. But I can tell you, without the Navy, the commerce and the business would be much, much different. I see them as a good neighbor. I certainly am willing to support this and will be voting yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Severance. Councilmember Olmberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I also will be voting yes. When those of us who are veterans signed up, most of us volunteered. And we volunteered to do a job. And the people at home backed us up. During World War I, World War II, it didn't matter. You still had the people back home backing you up. The civilian population is supposed to do their part when the military population does their part. And I think this is our civilian part right now to support those in the service and the services as we go forward here in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem Pagal.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm a Navy retired, spent 23 years in the Navy. My job in the Navy, I had two jobs. One professional job doing paperwork and numbers. And my other job was we call military job. I was part of the gun crew. It's not a regular gun, it's those big guns. I was a powder loader. When we made shore bombardments, it makes a big boom, I guess, noisier than the jet noise. It didn't bother me. I love the noise. And I'm proud to be, they call before, you're an American fighting man. I think the outlying field is very important. It's a very integral part of NAS Whidbey Island. And NAS Whidbey Island is, I can call, economic lifeline of Oak Harbor. Not only Oak Harbor, but the island county, the whole, and the outlying areas. And training is very, very important. Training in the Navy, I spent 23 years in the Navy training all the time. Because when we call upon for action, we're ready, either emergency or in war. In Vietnam, we made shore bombardments day and night. It was noisy, but we're there we have mission to do. As you all know, it is protecting the freedom of our nation. And I fully support the resolution because as I said initially that NAS Whidbey Island is an economic lifeline of Oak Harbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Pagal. Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. I too am a retired Navy man, a retired Chief Petty Officer. I spent 20 years in naval aviation. I have lived around Navy bases for that 20 years, and now for the last 13 years around this one. I believe that the Whidbey Island Naval Air Station complex is one of the most valuable that the U.S. government has. It's positioned in the right place. Do you have anything to say, sir?
No, we're going to ask you to address the chair.
I think it's very valuable because it's in the right place. It's ideal for aviation. The weather's good for it. There's open spaces out there where the guys can train. And the Navy's going to train their people. That's primarily what they're going to do. So when these young guys get in their airplanes and go over to the war zone and land on carriers and take off of carriers and get shot at, they will have the best training they can get. Alt Field is very good at doing that. We're going to get more airplanes, and that's good. Not all the jets that the Navy owns is going to end up here, only those that are operationally required. If I had to do it over again, I would do my 20 years in the Navy again. I would also live in Oak Harbor again. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. Councilmember Munns.
Well, a lot has already been said. I guess I'll speak to the enrichment that the people who live here, move here with the military provided. We have fresh, clean water. You can turn on a tap. We don't have to, unless you're on the outlying areas. We've got good water because the Navy brought it and asked the city if you would like to use part of this. They also asked Coopville and on down the line, and they decided not to. They also brought the college here. They saw a need for their own personnel, but also for the city. Back in the late 67, 68, 70s, and it was Navy wives that started the petitions. And they got the Navy officials going, and they got the federal going, and it was a unique partnership to have that college built here for the community. And otherwise, think about it. Isolated island, bridge on one end, ferries on the other. We probably wouldn't have a community college here now. But how many times has that helped us or our children or our neighbors? So they have really, the volunteers in our school system, pretty much, I'd say 90 to 98%, they're all military personnel that give their time. But they're interested. They want to help. They want to be needed. They want to be part of our fabric. And they have enriched our lives in that way. Sandbanking, when the banks flood in Mount Vernon, who's the first that they call? They go to the barracks, and I'll tell you, all the men and women, they go down there. They don't care what time of night it is or day. They go and they put in an 8-10-hour shift sandbagging and helping out. I know that with our fire department, if you're in need of a bomb dog or the law enforcement, that they have expertise we don't, and we help provide expertise for them. So as far as enriching our community, I'd hate to lose that part of it. We chose to live here because of our neighbors, because how they treated us when my husband was off in Desert Storm. Anyway, we're not gonna please everybody, but most of the people. This is it, and this makes up our community. And I heartily support it, and I think it's important that we stand up and show them that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Munns. Councilmember Savides.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's talk about the shirt. Received an email probably an hour and a half before the meeting. The mayor encouraged us if we wanted to be able to wear these shirts, and I struggled with it, Mr. Newkirk. I do not love jet noise. I don't think anyone is specifically saying we're going to seek out jet noise, but I wish the shirt said I 100% support the mission of the Navy. My family and I have spent the last 2 Saturdays down on the corner at 20 supporting the Navy's mission. I don't love jet noise. That is a byproduct of living next to an air station. And I think we want to work to be good neighbors. We want to build, our job is to build communities, not to divide it. And so how we work through that moving forward, it is going to be a challenge, but it doesn't mean that we don't support those men and women. The Navy brought us here. My wife was active duty and then reserves. They brought us here, but we chose to stay here. My wife has her master's degree. She's very marketable. My business is very virtual. We could live anywhere we want. We chose to live here because of the scenic beauty, the small town environment, the community, everything else that Oak Harbor has to offer. A byproduct of living next to an air base is noise. We went through, as Mr. Locke has since left, but we went through all those, we went through those same noise disclosures in 1997 when we moved here. And we chose to live here. So I would encourage, I absolutely support the mayor on this, even though I wish we had a different shirt. But I do support you, Mayor. And I think, Pythagoras, one of my favorite sayings is numbers inevitably lead a person down the path of reason. And when you study the sheer economics of what that base means to Whidbey Island, and as a business person, it would just be significance too small of word if that presence was not here as an economic driver. So we want to build communities, not divide them. We want to be good stewards of our resources and our lands, and I think we do have a challenge to study data. Ms. Campbell-DeWinder, I don't see her. We do have that responsibility to study that data and make the best decisions we can, but it's not going to be perfect, but I still think we should move forward. And so I absolutely support this resolution, and I move to adopt resolution number 1320 supporting NAS Whidbey Island training activities and facilities.
Second.
We We had a motion from Councilmember Savidius, second by Councilmember Homburg. Any further discussion?
Severance.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just heard a whole bunch of noise. Just pick any of you. Councilmember Severance. Well, we'll have you second it. Second by Councilmember Severance. Any further discussion in reference to the resolution and the motion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion supporting resolution number 1320, supporting Naval Air Station Whidbey Island and its training activities and facilities, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and that passed unanimously. Thank you, City Council. Since we're talking about military support and military appreciation, I apologize for springing this on you, Councilmember Munns, but I thought it was appropriate to touch what you may know about what may happen on September 7th here locally, here in Windjammer Park.
It is a community picnic, appreciating the military in our community, but it is open to everyone, and it's a way to meet your neighbor, or maybe neighbors you don't know yet. It's a free lunch. We have entertainment. We have games for kids, and pretty much a little bit of everyone in town helps out. It's from noon to 4, and it's down by the Windjammer Park by the windmill. And at 10 a.m. in the morning, there's an Enduring Freedom 5K run or walk for anyone who would like to participate.
Perfect. I think there's a lot of cities out there across the country that may host or be neighbors to a military base, but I think our neighbors appreciate what the council did this evening, and this is something unique here in Oak Harbor, which is that military appreciation picnic, so I appreciate you mentioning that. At this time, we'll go ahead and move on to our next item of business, which is Resolution 1318, declaring certain personal property of the city utility surplus and authorizing disposal. And we'll turn to our Public Works Director, Ms. Kathy Rosen. Ms. Rosen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you mentioned, the purpose of this agenda bill is for the City Council to hold a public hearing and consider adopting Resolution 1318, declaring certain property that was purchased by the different utility funds as surplus and authorizing the disposal of that. RCW 3594040 requires a public hearing and adoption of a resolution when city property that was acquired by utility funds is to be surplused and disposed of. We've worked with the finance department on this. We've talked with all of our staff. The list that is before you tonight is obsolete and no longer needed for our operations. And at this time, we're recommending that you open the public hearing, receive testimony, and then consider adopting Resolution 1318. Thank you.
Okay. Then we will open that public hearing now. Anybody wishing to publicly comment in reference to the surplus items can do so now. Okay. Seeing none, go ahead and close that public hearing. Turn to the City Council, starting with Councilmember Savidius.
No comments. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Munns.
Looks pretty straightforward.
Okay. Councilmember Campbell.
I agree.
Mayor Pro Tem Pagel.
No comment, Mr. Mayor.
And Councilmember Romberg.
No comment.
And Councilmember Severance.
Didn't see anything I wanted to keep, so I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 13-18.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilmember Severance, second by Councilmember Campbell to go ahead and adopt Resolution 1318. And any further discussion? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passed unanimously. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Rosen. And we move on to our next item of business. Under new business, it's a possible motion to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Robinson, Stafford, and Rood, Inc. for value engineering services related to the new wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $128,304. So we'll turn to our city engineer, Mr. Joe Stowell. Mr. Stowell.
Mayor, council members, thanks for having me here tonight. Give me just a second to get this going. I just couldn't let that error message go. I had to fix it. It's the engineer in me. I had to do it. So the agenda bill tonight is a value engineering contract for the wastewater treatment plant with Robinson, Stafford, and Rood. RSRI is probably the easier way to reference them. So back in March, if you remember, when we were doing our contract with Corollo Engineers, we had a list of different tasks that the city wanted to retain ownership of. This list here, if you remember, Steve Powers graciously agreed to help with. And in May, we approved these two contracts here. One was for property acquisition expert, Craig Fullerton, and cultural resource investigator, which was ERCI, who Kelly Bush there that we've used before. And so tonight, what we're here for is to plug this other hole in the list of contracts that we're looking to retain for the wastewater treatment plant, and that's the value engineering facilitator and the team they bring along with them. The process we went through is very similar to other engineering contracts where we went out, solicited for qualifications. We not only put it in the local paper, but in Seattle's, and then I went through a list and actually emailed it out to nationwide firms because this is kind of a select group of people that can do this work. And we had 4 statement of qualifications submitted, and RSRI scored highest based on the criteria we set forth. It was pretty straightforward to score, and RSRI was the clear leader in that group of 4 applicants. So their scope of work that they're proposing, it's pretty well defined. It's a short, very short timeline. We're going to provide them with 15% drawings for the wastewater treatment plant on August 16th. And the task there is to give their consultants, I'll get into that in just a minute, but to give their consultants a chance to review the documents and develop some thoughts on the project. And then the week of August 26th through 30th, the facilitator and their team will be here at our public workshop, and they'll hold their workshop right there in our office. Members of public works staff and the operators will be helping with that, as well as I will, and Corollo will also be in town to help kick things off and do a nice transition to help explain some of the bigger points that the decisions that we've made so far in the project. And then by September 30th, I should mention that the workshop, we've asked them to have a preliminary report to us within 5 days of the end of that. And so there's going to be some back and forth, understanding what their recommendations are, and implementing an actual final recommendation. And on September 30th, the intent is to actually sit down and go over that recommendation and pick through what it is that we want to implement or not. And when I say all that, I should probably explain value engineering. What they're doing is looking for cost-saving measures that still retain value in the project. So it's a twofold thing. It's not let's just see if we can hack away the cost. We're trying to retain the value of the project at the same time so that we get a quality product at the end. So this is, I put together, I thought it's pretty impressive really, the list of people that are going to be here for this workshop. Dave Hamilton is with RSRI. He is the team leader. He's who our contract is with. He brings with him this team of professionals that are going to review the project as it is now. And this team mirrors quite closely the team that we already have assembled to do the design. But we're bringing outside consultants in to take a closer look. So you can kind of see it's a pretty big deal, and I think it's going to be a tremendous help for the project. So the funding, the cost of this contract is $128,304. It comes out of the sewer fund. It's part of the budget for the wastewater treatment plant. It has been planned as part of that. And it's obviously included in the current rate structure that we presented as part of the facilities plan. And with that, I've copied the motion that Valerie graciously put in there for us, and thought I'd make it easy and put it up on the board for you.
Perfect. This time we'll go ahead and turn to the public, and if wishes to comment regarding this possible action by the council, you can do so now. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and turn to the council, and starting with Councilmember Severance.
Thank you, Mayor. When I first saw this several months ago, I had a question at a workshop about this being potentially redundant, wondered if we could get rid of this. I was convinced that they're very likely to save that money in a project this size. And as I also understand, we're pretty much required to have that.
It helps us with the SRF funding through Department of Ecology by giving us a higher ranking. So it's a critical component.
Yeah, and I was convinced at that workshop that this is a very necessary part of the wastewater treatment plant, which is the largest project we'll see, that's for sure. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Councilmember Almberg.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, my sentiments are the same as Mr. Severance. I am looking for 128,000 plus in savings, and you know, I think when another group vets this, as for as complicated as this project is, I think there's a good potential that we will achieve that goal, and we'll be monitoring that as we go forward. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Pagal.
I don't have any question, but I would like to thank Mr. Josh Stoll for your continued work on the future of this wastewater treatment. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you. I want to echo that. Thanks, Joe.
Councilmember Munns.
Small question. Every now and then I get some information from AWC, and I've sent you and Kathy, it's probably about 2 months ago, about new legislation that is kind of in the works on what they're going to be requiring within possible time frame of maybe what we haven't planned to. Are they also familiar with keeping up with stuff like that, so we haven't forgotten something we might need to have in the plant, or to be able to fit it in without trying to do a retrofit that will be extremely expensive?
You know, this is Crollo Engineers bailiwick. This
Right.
is what they do in NOAA's treatment plants. I have forwarded that information on to them,
Thank you.
and I'm sure they're tuned into it way better than I am. That's what they do.
It just, I know you're aware, and I hate to harp on it, but the first plant, this lasted a lot longer than anybody ever thought, and they got nervous and skimped. And we can't have the Maserati, but we need to have a good, solid plant that's going to fit the needs and be the best for our money to last, because it just doesn't work to try to retrofit stuff into it. And we can't afford fines either. So I just thought I'd throw it out. Thank you, Mr. Stillwell.
Councilmember Savides.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing really to add that would be redundant. I too would like to thank you for your work, also for checking that "do not show this message again" box. My next life, I might be an engineer. I move to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Robinson, Stafford, and Root Incorporated for value engineering services related to the new wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $128,304.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilmember Savides, second by Councilmember Munns. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Stoll. And it looks like our next item, we'll be bringing up our police chief, Chief Ed Green, a possible contract with those at Whidbey Animal Improvement Foundation. Chief Green.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. I bet all of you probably thought this day wouldn't come. So when you hired me, if you'd had told me I was going to be dealing with animal services, I would have been surprised. So as you see in front of you, you have an agenda bill here. As of September 30th of this year, the Navy is going to be shutting down and raising the facility that we now know as the WAIF Animal Services or Animal Holding Facility that we've used for several years. The city of Oak Harbor has located a new animal control holding facility out at 2725 Northeast Goldie Road. Yes, some of you may have noticed a different address. Trust me, it's 2725. We've gone through this several times. Because of the change of locations requiring a different way of operating, and the existing contract with Whidbey Animal Improvement Foundation could not be applied to this facility, it was decided that we needed to sit down and start going over what we had and what would work, what wouldn't work. So what we did, well, I guess start out here. In June of 2013, we entered into a contract and agreement with Chris Terrell, the owner of Freedom Kennels out of 2725 Northeast Goldie Road. The intent of this action was to gain use of this facility. We started to, prior to this, put out a request for proposal to build a new animal control facility or to come up with a group that's willing to work with us to build a facility. Out of that request for proposal, we only got 2 responses. Of the 2 responses we got, WAIF was one, and there was another party. WAIF was the only one that presented or provided us with a proposal that met the standards that we required. We met with WAIF after that, discussed the proposal with them, and because we're already in a contract with them, we started talking about whether or not we actually needed to go through the RFP process or let's renegotiate a contract and start working it toward the Goldie Road facility. We started these negotiations specifically on March 13th, and we've been going strong ever since. Ultimately, an annual agreement was met and just met recently for $100,000 a year for that agreement and a one-time payment for $15,000 for improvements toward the cat adoption fund or cat adoption facility. And I'll explain that facility and what's going on there and what's happening. The city of Oak Harbor is one of the few entities that works with WAIF that actually collects stray cats, and we need to house them someplace. We have a large population of stray cats. We try to get those animals out as quickly as we can after our holding period to whoever wants to adopt them and work with WAIF to make that happen. The contract we had before you asked that WAIF be partners and we be partners with them. They're going to work with us in a multitude of different ways, doing public service announcements, doing a few other things with Officer Yazagiri, community service information, getting it out there, talking about ways that we can prevent strays, what we can do to make sure these animals get reunited with their owners, etc. Part of what they asked in return from us was a commitment toward helping them with some of the improvements of that facility to handle some of the cats that they collect. And again, like I said, the largest majority of those cats get collected from us. So the contract you see before you asks for that one-time additional payment of $15,000 toward that improvement. No more than $15,000, but at $15,000 or less. The $100,000 is a little bit of a raise than what we had, but it's not unreasonable considering the cost of what it takes to run the facility for us and what we're asking them to do. We're asking them to operate a facility, about 9 kennels, somewhere between 6 and 9 kennels. It's being retrofitted as we speak with Public Works. At any given time, we've had no more than about 5 animals in our care for about the 6 or 7 day holding period. Those 9 kennels will enable us to keep those vicious animals, sick animals, and whatever animals need to be separated away from each other. Specifically, these are dogs, these are not cats. Cats are a whole different thing. They have their own cages, and we deal with those differently, but they will be housed in that facility as well. Also in the contract, if you look through it, you'll find out that a couple things were agreed to. One of the things that was agreed to is that the shelter would be open late, at least the animal control facility be open late. So at the rear of the contract, you'll find an addendum. Attachment A talks about some of the improvements we've committed to do to make this facility work for both parties. Attachment B is the agreement that WAIF has given to us in regard to when they will be available to the public and when they'll be open and when they'll be working with us. There are some times when we've acknowledged that they may not be there or we may not be able to get to them before they close. So arrangements have been made so we can get an animal in there late at night. There may also be times, and this hasn't happened in a recorded history that I'm aware of, but there may be a time when the facility is full and there's a provision in the contract that allows for us to work with WAIF at any given moment and make room for those particular animals at one of their other facilities. So if that does happen, that'd be something that we will settle up between myself, Doug Merriman, and Larry Court, of course. But all that is written in here. It's quite detailed. Right now, what I would ask is that the council consider adopting this contract and send it to the mayor for approval for $100,000 annually and a one-time payment of $15,000. So,
Thank you, Chief Green. This time we'll turn to the public. Anybody wishing to comment regarding this agenda item can do so now, and we'll ask you state your name and remind you that you have up to 3 minutes.
Shane Hoffmeyer, Oak Harbor, Washington. Will there be a holding pen for chickens? If so, don't blame me. No, this is a good thing to be doing. I know it's needed done for a while. I guess I would encourage you guys to look at, when you do recover these stray animals, if there's not a willing to recoup the $100,000 back from the owners that were, either A, irresponsible, or B, very grateful and very willing to pay whatever fee to get their dog back. And again, thank you for moving ahead on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffmeyer. Anyone else?
Hello. I'm Barbara Moran with the Whidbey Animal Guild, and my lovely and talented assistant is our son, CJ Baker. With the new contract and anticipating the hiring of a progressive, experienced executive director by WAIF, the Whidbey Animal Guild proposes that the city launch a pet licensing drive to assure any dog or cat owner who buys a license tag that their lost pet will be delivered home whenever possible. Hold it up. Oh, very good. My Tag is My Ticket Home is a popular campaign elsewhere. And in your packets, I've included licensing programs that utilize this model in other cities, just so you have background on how it works. Taking licensed pets home reduces shelter crowding as well as stress on pets and their owners. It's good public relations, and it promotes license tags. WAG proposes that proceeds from licenses be used to subsidize local veterinarians so they can provide citizens with low-cost spay-neuter services. This would also provide a much more humane and effective long-term strategy for feral cats. We hope that WAIF will continue to work actively with the city to maintain a complete, up-to-date stray pet Facebook page, and we'd like to congratulate the city on having over 500 Facebook followers. We urge WAIF to publish its animal statistics on its website using a respected system like the Asilomar Accords so we can help them, as well as other island nonprofits, find major grants. Verifiable empirical data is also vital in planning the expenditure of tax dollars. We would ask WAIF to eliminate confidentiality forms for volunteers, which have led to First Amendment lawsuits, and instead develop a whistleblower policy, which organizations must verify on their 990 forms. We would also encourage WAIF to identify its board members and post current financials on its website to help citizens understand exactly how tax dollars are spent. We encourage WAIF to hold periodic public meetings or join an ongoing community task force to develop plans for helping feral cats and harder-to-place dogs. How about organizing trips monthly for citizens using WAIF's van to transport pets to NOAA's low-cost spay-neuter clinic? Maybe NOAA could take some of WAIF's adoptable animals and relieve any waiting list. WAG welcomes the chance to work with WAIF on such projects. Let's bring collaborative, cost-effective, compassionate, creative, common-sense solutions to the city, to Island County, and to the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment, bring back our police chief, Chief Green, turn to the city council, starting off with Councilmember Savadius.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wake up the iPad. I'd like to thank Ms. Moran, Dr. Baker. We get lots of, CJ, nice to meet you. We get lots of input, and what I appreciate is your passion and your willingness to, or not willingness, your desire to be progressive. And I think that's in everything we do as a city. We want to be on the forefront of things rather than playing catch up. I had a question, Chief Green, and I don't know if you're the correct person. When we look at 6 to 9 kennels, for some reason I thought the capacity was going to be a little bit bigger than that when we entered into these discussions. Was that they had more, but they're just not adequate size-wise?
The facility has plenty of room to expand.
Okay.
Right now, what it is we're looking to get to the facility and get up and operational.
Okay.
So that's why we're at 6 to 9 kennels.
Super. So we're looking at 2 years and 3 months here if we enter into this, and with the ability to reevaluate. So
yes.
Thank you. I'll support it.
Councilmember Munns.
It's taken a long while, but you're succeeding.
And I want to say thank you for your assistance in all of it.
No problem, no problem. I had one question. Is it to help with our budget, that 15,000? It would seem like the improvements to the CAT holding facility would need to be upgraded sooner than 2014. So is this a reimbursement up to 15,000 or?
Correct. They're already doing the work.
Okay, so we may pay part of that 15,000, but it won't be any, okay.
Correct.
I thought if we're waiting that long, it's like, oh man, those cats, ooh, I'm not gonna wanna go in there.
For budgetary reasons, it was agreed that that would be postponed until that time.
Good, great, okay, that's it. This looks great. It's our first step. It's wonderful. Thank you and your staff and Dr. Court very much.
Councilmember Campbell.
Thank you. I'm going to support this 100%. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mayor Pro Tem Pagal.
Thank you, Aaron. I think Mr. Hofmeyer has a legitimate question about stray chickens. There was a recent news in Seattle about owners of chicken got tired of raising them, so there are homeless chicken in Seattle. I guess not in this ordinance, but I guess something to look in the future. I don't have anything else.
Not something addressed in the contract, but if we need to, we will approach WAIF on it. So.
Thank you.
Councilmember Alderman.
Thank you, Mayor. And this may be a question for Dr. Court. When we exercise the lease option to purchase this property from Mr. Terrell, my recollection is the estimate to make certain improvements to this building to make it useful as a holding shelter was about $20,000.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have we spent any part of that 20,000, or is this 15,000 that we're talking about what we're earmarking in place of the 20,000?
No, the 15,000 is unfortunately over and above the 20,000 that we projected, that we sort of budgeted to get the facility ready. Our original thought in moving into the new facility was that the 2 front rooms of the new facility could be retrofitted to work as a CAT adoption center, and in working with WAIF, it was clear fairly soon after we acquired the facility that those 2 rooms would not be adequate to serve the number of cats, frankly, that are picked up here in the city of Oak Harbor. And so we went with option 2, which was to help WAIF develop that type of facility in their building.
Okay, how much have we spent of that 20,000 that we estimated would cost to improve the shelter at this moment? Do you happen to know?
I do not have that number right now.
Okay. Is this in our current budget? Is there a line item for this $100,000? Question number 1 to the chief. Question number 2, what is the difference in our monthly payments to WAIF comparing this contract to our old contract?
I can't give you the exact monthly payment. I can tell you our old contract's about $84,000 and change. Is there money in my budget? Yes, there is. We'll be making some adjustments.
I misunderstood that. You say, what was the old contract monthly payment?
Is monthly? I don't know the exact number. Annually, about $84,000 and
okay.
change.
So,
yes.
So we're talking about roughly about $1,200 a month more now than we had.
Correct.
Before. Okay. And it is in the budget. It is a line item in the budget.
Yes.
Okay. It's not coming out of some reserve or something like that.
No.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Alberg, I might also add to that as well, that you're likely to be seeing a contract in September that we're currently negotiating with Forest City to continue operating as the animal recovery service in base housing, and that will be a cash for services contract. And I can't tell you exactly where we're going to end up with what that contract will be, but there's a high likelihood that $1,200 to $1,200 a month figure will come way down, if not be eliminated.
So there will be an offset?
There will be,
potentially.
yes.
Okay. And then regarding the presentation by the previous, are there any plans right now to do the tag and return? It would seem to me on the surface that it would be less expensive for the city to return the animal to the owner if it was identified at that point, rather than going through the administrative process of transferring it back and forth into the shelter. Where are we going with that potential policy?
Well, I think it's fair to say that both Chief Green and I have learned a lot about animal sheltering services over the progressive ideas that are in use elsewhere. And so what we're looking at right now, and what you're looking at tonight, is really step one. There's a number of ideas that have come up in terms of implementing some of these additional ideas, including some revenue generating ideas but more importantly, to find every way we can to return animals as quickly as possible to their owners, because from every perspective, that's the best way to go.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Court and Chief Green.
If I may add to that, just so you're aware, we advocate that right now. My animal services officer does. We make every effort to try and return an animal, whether it be through their tag or whether it be through their chip. The animal services officer is equipped with the proper equipment to try and to run every chip that he can find. If we can't do that, then of course the animal then goes to the shelter, and going to this new facility where we have high-speed internet access is going to enable me to get that information out to the public almost immediately once the animal's there. One of the things we're dealing with right now with the base facility is I don't have that ability, and sometimes that gets delayed by a day, 2 days, 3 days to get that information out to the public that here's where your animal's at. So we're heading in that direction even faster. So
thank you. And at the proper time, I'd be willing to make a motion.
Okay, Councilmember Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor. Most of my questions have been asked. The Navy involvement, Dr. Court, you said what month?
We're shooting to have that before the council at one of your September meetings.
Oh, okay. So between now and then, they would be responsible. Well, no. If we do that, then we'll have that covered.
Right. Our goal is to, assuming that Forest City wants us to continue that role at their housing, we would need to get that in place to start on October 1st.
Okay. Well, I too am happy to hear that we're making that we're trying to do this. My tag is my ticket home. It sounds like we're doing some of that now. So I think that's a great thing, and I'm ready to vote. So you make the motion, Mr. Olmberg.
Councilman Almond.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd like to make the motion that the City Council authorize the mayor to sign the contract for the Animal Control Holding Facility Service Contract, Whidbey Animals Improvement Foundation and City of Oak Harbor for the period dated October 1st, 2013 to December 31, 2015.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilmember Almberg, second by Councilmember Munns. Any further discussion? If council would allow me to, I want to thank the police chief and you mentioned the scanner. This was something that we didn't have before. So if our animal control officer picked up an animal and it wasn't alive, here's an opportunity now that we're able to scan and return an animal back to their loved ones. So that's very nice. So I applaud you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Chief Green. Looking at our agenda, looking at our clock, It looks like the city council will be going into an executive session to discuss many odd topics. We're going to be discussing pending litigation, property acquisition, and 2 personnel issues. Staff has requested at least an hour and 20 minutes. So, knowing that that would put us at 10 o'clock and knowing that our council meeting ends at 9 o'clock, I turn to Councilmember Servedius.
Anybody else want to stab, want to practice? I move to suspend the council's rules and extend our meeting time to 10:15.
You got a motion to extend the council meeting to 10:15. Do I have a second?
Second.
We got a second from Councilmember Campbell. And all those in favor of extending the council meeting?
I'd like to make a friendly motion
Okay, we got it.
that we try for 9:15 and then do an extension after that.
Well, we'll be coming out, and what we'll be needing is we'll need the whole body to come out. So in this case,
Okay.
you can talk fast.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
It
The motion on
just
the
seemed like
floor.
a long time.
Well, we can talk fast, and as soon as we get out of executive session, which the council may take action, city council does not take action in executive session, but the council may take action following the executive session. But currently, the council has a motion to extend the council meeting to 10:15. Could be earlier. All those in favor of extending the council meeting to 10:15 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. At this time, we're in executive session to 10 o'clock, and if we have to run later, I'll come out and let everybody know.
10:15.
We're in executive session. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and reconvene this regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. And when we last left you, we were in executive session discussing pending litigation, property acquisition, and 2 personnel issues. And now we're back in session. Want to turn to the council and see if the council wishes to take any action. Councilmember Munns.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move to authorize the mayor to sign the settlement agreement with Kathy Rosen.
Second.
Got a motion and a second from Councilmember Homburg. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Those opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Any other action? Okay, hearing none. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilmember Servedius.
I move to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned.